Hello and welcome to episode 60 of the Wisdom from the Akasha podcast. My name is Suzie. I am your host and I am an Akashic Records teacher and practitioner. Today I'm going to be answering a listener's question. I love to receive listeners' questions, so if you would like to submit a question or a topic that you would like me to do a deeper dive into here on the podcast, I will link a page from my website in the show notes below. All you do is fill out that form and then when they are submitted, I will answer them here. So today's listener's question is, how can I wake my partner up? I have been through this spiritual awakening experience. I am in that information absorption phase. So I'm researching, I'm learning all of this information about consciousness, about energy, about the soul and evolution and all of this good stuff. And my partner hasn't yet been through their spiritual awakening. So how can I wake them up? The short answer to this is you can't. You are not in control of anybody else's spiritual awakening. We choose as souls whether or not we are going to go through a spiritual awakening in a lifetime before we come into the lifetime. So it's never your job or your responsibility to wake anybody else up. Okay, so that's the first part of this answer. The second part of this answer is it's also not your place to judge. And I say this with much love because it's very normal on our spiritual journey when we first have that spiritual awakening and we're finding all of this stuff out and we just want to share it with people. We want to tell everybody what's going on. That we then look around ourselves and start to judge others for being asleep or for not being on their spiritual journey. And this is the ego coming in one of its many guises. This is spiritual ego. So if you are looking at somebody and you are judging where they are at on their spiritual journey, this is just your ego, and your work is to acknowledge that this is your ego and do the work. With that, you will never know where somebody else is on their spiritual journey in respect of their spiritual evolution, because the soul's evolution happens over lifetimes. So there can be people who are in this current lifetime who do not appear spiritual from the outside or do not come across as spiritual, who are actually very evolved as a soul. And perhaps they have come into this incarnation to really master a specific lesson that has nothing to do with spirituality, in quotes, and they are quietly getting on with that. So you are never going to know where somebody is at in their soul's evolutionary journey. The only thing that you can know is where you're at and what you're working on and what life is presenting to you to work with. So I completely appreciate that it can be frustrating if you're in a relationship with somebody and you've had this experience and you're wanting to talk and explore and do all these different things with that person and that they're just not interested. I totally understand why that can be frustrating. But there is nothing that you can do to trigger an awakening within somebody else. Now, this isn't to say that along your journey, you being you doing your work, you healing, you transmuting, you evolving, that very process isn't going to trigger an awakening within somebody else. That absolutely happens, and I see that all the time. But where the difference is that isn't you trying to force your will upon them, as in trying to force their awakening. What's happening there is that's a energetic reverberation acting upon the other individual's light grid, and it activates within them. So this does happen. I've also seen very, very happy relationships where one partner is very into their spiritual development and they are going through the work and going through the process, and the other person just isn't interested. And that other person actually provides a grounding point for the person who's going through their spiritual journey. And it's a beautiful balance in a relationship. So it isn't that, if you're going through a spiritual awakening and your partner isn't or has no interest in it, that's the end of the relationship at all. It's how it's navigated by both parties. Now, in those instances where it works really well and we have one partner as the grounding point and one partner off doing their evolution, where the telltale marker is in respect of, can this relationship really be healthy and support each individual's evolution? Can it be conscious? Is when the individual who's the grounding point does not try to stop the other person. So they might not understand why their partner wants to go on a retreat or why they want to take up a specific practice, but they're not going to object and they're not going to try to control what the other party does. But absolutely, relationships can work in which one partner is going through the spiritual awakening and the other is not. This does happen. I see it all the time. So I hope that has answered your question. I completely understand that desire to want to wake everybody up and tell everybody about all of these different things that you're exploring and that you're coming across. But it isn't your job, it isn't your responsibility, and we don't have the right to impose our beliefs and our will upon anybody else. Our work is always ourself. And our focus always has to be on our own evolution and what we've got going on. And of course, what life is presenting us to deal with. So I hope this has been helpful, and I will see you next week for the next episode.